Umbrellas are an indispensable accessory to many people's daily routine. But have you ever thought about how strange their history is? They were used in ancient times as weapons. They were once associated with both wealth and prostitution, and they even caused several wars over the course of human history. Umbrellas have been around for thousands of years. In fact, they may have actually predated recorded history. The earliest umbrellas we know of were made by ancient Egyptians, some 3,500 years ago. They were made from papyrus plants which grew along the Nile River. These umbrellas weren't like modern umbrellas, however. They were more like large handheld fans. Some scholars think these primitive umbrellas were used primarily as sunshades rather than rain protection. After all, Egypt is a desert and hardly the rainiest place on earth. The ancient Egyptians believed that their pharaohs were gods among men, so it's not surprising that they took great pains to protect their faces from the sun, lest they be blinded by its rays. As one ancient Egyptian poem put it, the sun god scorches his face. May the shade of the umbrella cool him. It was also common for the umbrellas to be decorated with elaborate artwork depicting everything from scenes of daily life to pictures of deities. The wealthier members of society also had umbrella bearers that walked behind them and shielded their faces from direct sunlight. While the wealthy enjoyed the benefits of umbrellas, most Egyptians didn't own one. Being able to afford an umbrella was a sign of wealth, just like being able to afford a car or a house in today's world. Another early civilization that came up with the idea of an umbrella was the Chinese. The oldest known depiction of a Chinese umbrella comes from a 1046 BCE bronze vessel that depicts a man holding a curved umbrella over the head of someone else. According to Chinese legend, the umbrella was invented by a man named Liu Ban, who noticed that a large leaf conveniently shielded his face from the rain while he was out walking. He then decided to fashion a more permanent umbrella out of wood and silk. Another legend attributes the umbrella's invention to a woman who was inspired after seeing water dripping off of a tree leaf. Initially, umbrellas were used in China as a symbol of wealth and power. However, they soon became a common sight on the streets of China. Unlike in Egypt, where umbrellas were typically held manually, Chinese umbrellas were carried on poles. This made them easier to use since you didn't have to hold them with your hands. You could simply carry the pole on your shoulder. Meanwhile, another major world civilization had yet to come up with an umbrella. The ancient Greeks, Romans, and other Mediterranean peoples had no umbrellas. Instead, they would simply pull up their hoods and cover their heads with their togas. Perhaps they just didn't get rained often enough in the Mediterranean to feel the need for such a contraption. However, this would soon change when a new empire rose to power in northern India. The Mauryan Empire was founded by Chandragupta Maurya in 322 BCE. At its greatest extent, the empire stretched from the Arabian Sea in the west to the fertile Gangetic Plain in the east. The Mauryan emperors were ardent Buddhists, and Buddhism would play a key role in the development of the umbrella. In Buddhist tradition, the umbrella symbolizes protection. The story goes that while Buddha was meditating under a tree, a nearby king noticed him and ordered that a protective umbrella be placed over the meditating Buddha. To this day, the umbrella remains a prominent symbol of Buddhism, and Buddhist monks often carry umbrellas as part of their religious ceremonies. During the reign of the Mauryan Empire, umbrellas were also used as a symbol of royalty. Emperor Asoka the Great, who ruled from 268 to 232 BCE, commissioned giant umbrella-like structures to be built at the four corners of his empire. Known as chhatra, these structures resembled giant multi-tiered umbrellas and served as symbols of Asoka's power. Unfortunately, none of these chhatras survived to the present day. In the meantime, the umbrella had also reached ancient Persia. There's some evidence that umbrellas were used in ancient Mesopotamia, but it's unclear if these early Mesopotamian umbrellas functioned as sunshades or rain protections. What we do know is that the Assyrians, who lived in northern Mesopotamia, used umbrellas as a symbol of authority. Reliefs depicting Assyrian kings holding umbrellas have been found throughout the region. Given that the Assyrians lived in a dry, sunny climate, it's likely that these umbrellas were used as sunshades. The Assyrians were notorious for their brutality, so perhaps they used the umbrellas as a way of protecting themselves from getting too much sun, while pillaging and plundering their enemies' cities. As we've seen, umbrellas were popular among the ancient Chinese, Indians, and Persians, but not among the Greeks, Romans, or Egyptians. So when Alexander the Great conquered the Persian Empire, his soldiers didn't see much use for those strange foreign umbrellas. In fact, When Alexander's general Ptolemy I seized control of Egypt in 305 BCE and made himself pharaoh. He tried to stamp out umbrella usage altogether. According to the Greek historian Strabo, Ptolemy issued an edict banning people from carrying umbrellas because they were Persian. Unfortunately, the edict backfired. Rather than stamping out the use of umbrellas, Ptolemy only succeeded in making them more popular. People began using umbrellas as a way of showing their wealth and power, kind of like people who drive luxury cars today. Of course, unlike people who buy luxury cars, most umbrella users were probably trying to emulate Ptolemy himself, who was arguably the richest and most powerful person in the Mediterranean at the time. For centuries, umbrellas remained popular in Egypt, Greece, and Rome, but elsewhere in the world, they fell out of style. Meanwhile, in sub-Saharan Africa, a similar item was rising in popularity: the parasols. Parasols were large, usually round shields that could be propped up on the ground. They were used by African societies as a way of protecting themselves from the sun, and in some cases, as a weapon. One advantage that parasols had over traditional umbrellas was that they didn't have to be carried. They could simply be planted in the ground, and then you could relax in the shade. In some cases, parasols were elaborately decorated with tribal symbols and artwork. Back in Europe, umbrellas went out of style during the Middle Ages, but they made a comeback in the Renaissance. In fact, umbrellas became so popular in 16th century Italy that a special type of umbrella lane was established in Florence, where people could walk without having to worry about being drenched by passing umbrellas. This would be akin to establishing a special pedestrian lane in downtown Manhattan today. Despite their popularity, however, umbrellas were still largely viewed as a symbol of wealth and power. In England, the wealthy were even known to ride in horse-drawn carriages with umbrellas mounted on top. In the meantime, umbrellas started becoming more democratized, thanks to the Industrial Revolution. In the 19th century, umbrellas were mass-produced and became much cheaper. Soon enough, they were something that ordinary people could afford. In 1852, an Englishman named Jonas Hanway started carrying a small black umbrella around London. Hanway was considered eccentric, to say the least. But as more and more people started carrying small black umbrellas, the look became fashionable. By the late 1800s, men's umbrellas were typically made of black silk or cotton. Women's umbrellas, meanwhile, came in a variety of colors and were often decorated with ribbons. During the same period, umbrellas started being used as a symbol of prostitution. Prostitutes would often carry brightly colored umbrellas at night, so that they could be seen more easily by potential customers. This led to a new word for prostitutes: walking umbrellas. It's unclear exactly why prostitutes preferred carrying brightly colored umbrellas. Perhaps they wanted to attract the attention of potential customers, or perhaps they were trying to hide their faces behind the bright colors. Whatever the reason, this association between umbrellas and prostitution has lasted into modern times. In fact, the last official madam in Paris still carries a red umbrella to this day. The early 20th century saw several famous umbrella-related wars. In 1907, a diplomatic incident nearly caused a war between Portugal and Brazil. It started when a Brazilian military attaché was denied entry to a Lisbon casino. The attaché demanded to speak to the Portuguese foreign minister. When he was denied that request, he retaliated by smashing a bottle of Brazilian cherry wine over the head of a police officer. He then took shelter under a nearby umbrella, which happened to belong to the Portuguese prime minister. When the prime minister confronted the attaché, he was arrested and imprisoned. Portugal soon declared war on Brazil, but the conflict was quickly resolved through diplomacy. Meanwhile, just 2 years later, an umbrella nearly caused a war between France and Germany. It was April 1909, and French President Armand Fallières was visiting Berlin. While walking down a crowded street, an umbrella was thrown at Fallières' carriage. Although no one was hurt, tensions between France and Germany soon escalated. Many French newspapers blamed Wilhelm II, the Kaiser of Germany, for the assassination attempt. Although there was no clear evidence that Wilhelm had orchestrated the attack, the French government was determined to find the culprit. 2 German newspaper boys were eventually arrested and charged with plotting to assassinate Fallières. However, both boys were released after it was discovered that they had been paid by French Secret Service agents to throw the umbrella. This bizarre episode was known as the Ebrule Affair. Today, umbrellas are mostly used as a way of staying dry in the rain. But in some parts of the world, they're still used as a symbol of status and wealth. For example, in Japan, high-end department stores will sell umbrellas made of fine fabrics like silk. These umbrellas are often very expensive, but they're highly sought after by wealthy Japanese women. Now check out how did swords actually work, or click this other video instead.